The rich rancher came to collect a debt, but found a young widow nursing 3 children. The year was 1872, and the land between Helena and Willow Creek was nothing but wind, dust, and memory. At dawn, the sky hung low, gray, heavy, and waiting. The kind of morning where breath turned white, and every hoofbeat sounded like a question the earth didn't want to answer. Wade Coulter rode alone. His horse's flanks steamed in the chill as he guided it through the frozen grass. A leather note, folded and cracked from too many rides in the pocket of his coat, rested against his chest. A debt notice. It bore a man's name he'd never met, Eli Mercer. The wind tugged at Wade's coat collar, whispering through the cottonwoods. He tightened the reins and looked ahead, past a stretch of open land, toward a faint silhouette of a homestead, a sagging roofline, one fence post still standing like a stubborn tooth. He'd seen 100 like it before, but something about this one felt different. When he reached the gate, the place looked more graveyard than farm. The barn door hung loose. The crops were nothing but brittle stalks breaking under frost, and smoke rose thin and gray from a chimney too weak to keep anyone warm. He swung off his horse, boots crunching to the frozen mud. A dog barked once, hoarse, uncertain, then fell silent. Wade called out, voice low, even, "Eli Mercer. Wade Coulter here. I'll come about the loan." Silence answered. He stepped forward, slow, cautious. The porch boards groaned beneath his weight. He reached for the door. Then came the sound. Click. A rifle hammer drawn back. "Don't move." The voice was raw, shaking, but it carried a strength that stopped him cold. From the shadows of the doorway, a woman appeared. Her face was pale, framed by dark hair half pinned, half falling loose. She wore a man's flannel shirt under a patched shawl. Sleeves rolled to the elbow, a rifle brace against her shoulder. Behind her, in the dim cabin light, 2 small shapes clung to her skirts. "Children." Wade raised his hand slowly. "Ma'am, I don't mean trouble." "Then turn around," she snapped. "You can take your trouble and go back to wherever you came from. I'm looking for Eli Mercer." The rifle didn't waver. "You're too late." The words hung in the cold like smoke. "Too late?" Wade asked. She nodded once, eyes hard as cut glass. "He's dead, buried behind the barn. Ain't nothing left here but what the wind didn't take." For a moment, the only sound was the creak of the door and the low cry of the smallest child. The baby was wrapped in a ragged quilt, her cheeks pale, breath shallow. Wade's voice softened. "You his wife?" Her jaw set. "Widow. Name's Clara." She lowered the rifle an inch, but her eyes stayed locked on him, watchful, defiant. Wade reached inside his coat slowly and pulled out the note. He held it out. "He owed me $8.20. I came to see it paid." Her laugh was sharp, bitter. $8? You rode all the way out here for $8. He didn't answer. He learned silence did more talking than words sometimes. She turned away, muttering, "You're welcome to dig him up if you think he's got coins in his pockets." Wade stood there a long time. The wind carried the smell of wood smoke and sorrow. Finally, he tied his horse to the post and stepped onto the porch again. "Ma'am, if you'll let me, I'll come in a minute. Warm myself before I ride back." Her eyes flicked to the children, to the baby, then back to him. She hesitated. "Fire's near out," she said flatly. "Ain't much to warm you." He nodded and pushed the door open. Inside, the air was thick with damp and cold. A kettle hissed weakly on the stove. The walls bore marks of hard living, holes patched with newspaper, one window stuffed with rags. A boy no older than 6 sat near the hearth, playing with a whittled stick. The girl beside him, maybe 4, watched Wade with wide, curious eyes. Wade knelt near the stove, rubbing his hands over the faint heat. "Cold morning," he murmured. Clara didn't answer. She was trying to coax flame from dying coals, her movements tired but precise. After a moment, she said, "You came from town?" "Helena. My ranch is 3 ridges east." She looked up sharply. "Coulter Ranch?" He nodded once. Her face went pale. "My husband died working one of your drives." Wagon axle snapped. "You didn't even send word." Wade froze. The room felt smaller, air thicker. "I didn't know," he said quietly. We had men spread all over. Sometimes Word. "Don't," she snapped. "Don't tell me about Word. I buried him myself." The baby whimpered. Clara turned away, rocking the child gently, whispering under her breath. Wade stood silent, hat in hand. He'd seen grief before, seen it twist people inside out, but something about this woman's stillness carried more strength than rage ever could. He looked around the room again. Empty shelves. One loaf of bread gone hard. A pot with more water than soup. "How long since you've been to town?" he asked. 3 weeks. Snow came early. I traded what I had left for flour. He opened his saddlebag and pulled out a small cloth bundle, jerky coffee beans. He placed it on the table. Her eyes flicked to it. "I didn't ask for charity. Didn't say it was." He shrugged. "Call it payment for fire." Something in his tone made her pause. She didn't thank him, but she didn't push it away either. Hours passed. Wade helped mend the door that had come loose in the wind. The children followed him like shadows, wide-eyed but curious. When the work was done, Clara leaned against the doorframe, arms folded. "You can go now. I got no money for you. No land either. The bank will take it come spring." He wiped his hands on a rag, met her gaze. "I don't want your land." "Then why are you here?" Wade hesitated, then said the thing he didn't quite understand himself. "Maybe I just wanted to see who he left behind." She looked at him then, not as an enemy, not as a collector, but as a man standing in the ruins of her world. For a heartbeat, neither spoke. That night, he made camp outside her cabin. The stars were distant pinpricks of silver, and the moon rose over the black ridge like a slow coin. The wind carried the faint cry of a child inside the house, then the hush of Clara's voice soothing it. Wade fed his horse, poured himself a cup of bitter coffee, and stared at the faint light in her window. He thought about the note in his pocket, about all the years he'd spent chasing numbers instead of people. He thought about his father, a man who'd said, "A man's worth is what's owed to him." But tonight, that didn't sound right anymore. He tossed the last of his coffee into the dirt. By morning, frost had glazed the grass white. He rose early, knocked on the door, and found Clara already up, wrapping her baby in a worn blanket. "You're leaving?" she asked. "Was thinking to." She looked down at the floorboards. "You gonna tell your men to come take the land?" He shook his head. "I'll tell them to stay clear." For the first time, her eyes softened. Just a flicker, but enough to make the morning warmer. "You're still owed money," she said. Wade shrugged. "Some debts ain't worth collecting." He turned to go, but her voice stopped him. "Mr. Coulter?" He looked back. "Why'd you really come?" He took a long breath. The paper said debt. "But maybe I just needed to see what loss looks like up close again." She didn't answer, just watched as he mounted his horse and rode toward the horizon, the rising sun burning gold across the prairie. As he disappeared into the light, Clara whispered to herself, "Maybe some debts are paid in ways you can't write down." That night, as he reached the ridge and made camp alone, Wade unfolded the old debt notice one last time. The ink was faded, smudged from rain and sweat. He held it to the fire, and the flame caught quick. The paper curled, blackened, turned to ash. In the glow, Wade's face was calm, still hard, but different somehow. He looked out over the plains, where the wind carried the scent of pine and smoke. And in that quiet, he thought of her words. Some debts ain't worth collecting. For the first time in years, Wade Coulter didn't feel like a man owed anything at all. Morning broke red as rust. The wind had changed overnight, carrying with it a scent Wade Coulter knew too well. Smoke and danger. He was already saddling his horse when he saw the trail. Fresh hoof prints coming from the south, cutting deep into the frost. 3, maybe 4 riders. Moving fast. No ranch brand he recognized. He looked toward the Mercer cabin. Thin wisps of smoke curled from the chimney. Inside, Clara was waking her children, stirring what little porridge she had left. Wade's gut tightened. He'd planned to ride on, to leave this place and its ghost behind. But the way the sky glowed, unnatural, orange at the edges, told him something was burning out there, And trouble never burned just one home at a time. He walked up to the cabin door, boots crunching through brittle grass. Clara opened before he could knock. She'd heard the horses, too. "They're coming, aren't they?" she said. Wade nodded. "You got a place to hide?" Her voice trembled, though her face stayed stone. "The root cellar. But it won't hold long if they find us." He stepped inside, eyes sweeping the room. "You got a gun?" She nodded toward the wall. "My husband's rifle. Ain't fired it since he died." Wade checked the chamber. Empty. He loaded it quick from his own belt. "It'll do." The little boy tugged at Clara's dress. "Mama, who's coming?" She bent down, kissed his hair. "No one, sweetheart. Just stay quiet." Outside, faint laughter echoed through the hills. Then came the thunder of hooves. 4 riders, coats flapping, guns slung low. One of them, their leader, had a red scarf tied at his throat and a grin that didn't reach his eyes. They rode right up to the porch like they owned the land. "Mercer Place," the leader shouted. "Heard the man's gone and the woman's alone." He spat in the dirt. "Guess that means free picking." Wade stepped onto the porch, rifle leveled. "Ain't nothing free here." The men froze, surprised. The leader squinted. "Well, I'll be damned." "Wade Coulter, thought you was too rich to play hero. Maybe I changed hobbies." The leader grinned wider. "You got no stake in this place, Coulter. Ride off, and we'll pretend we didn't see you." Wade's voice dropped, low and final. "And leave them to you?" "No." The standoff broke fast. A gun cocked. A match flared. Then the first shot cracked the air. Wade ducked behind a water trough as bullets tore through the porch posts. Wood splintered. Clara screamed for her children and dragged them toward the back door. Wade fired twice. One outlaw dropped, clutching aside. The others scattered, taking cover behind the barn and an old wagon. Smoke curled thick around them, mixing with the smell of gunpowder and fear. "Clara!" Wade shouted. "Get them in the cellar." "I am," she yelled back. "You keep their eyes on you." He did. Every movement was instinct. Reload, fire, shift. The sound of hammer clicks and boots on dirt echoed between heartbeats. A bullet grazed a shoulder, tearing through his coat. He hissed in pain but didn't slow. One of the outlaws crept around the side, shotgun raised. Before Wade could turn, the blast came, shattering the window. Clara's voice cut through the chaos. "Down, Mr. Coulter." Her rifle thundered. The man fell backward, blood streaking the wall behind him. For a moment, the noise stopped. Wade looked over. Clara stood in the doorway, hair loose, face streaked with soot, rifle steady in her hands. The children's cries echoed from below the floorboards. "You shoot good," Wade called, breath ragged. She met his eyes. "He taught me." The last 2 outlaws hesitated, spooked. Wade aimed carefully and fired. One dropped. The other ran for his horse. "Let him go," Clara said, voice hoarse. Wade didn't. He took the shot. The man fell 30 yards out. Then silence. Only the wind moving through broken boards and the faint whimper of a frightened child. Wade leaned against the porch post, breathing hard. Blood seeped through his sleeve. Clara came to him, trembling. "You're hit," she said. "Just a scratch." She gave him a look that said she didn't believe that for a second. Then she took his arm. "Come inside." Inside, the cabin looked worse. Glass shattered, the table overturned, blood smeared across the floor. She guided him to a chair near the fire and tore a strip from her skirt. "Hold still," she ordered. He tried to joke. "You always this gentle?" "Only when I like my patient alive." She cleaned the wound, hand steady despite the shaking in her shoulders. When it was done, she tied the cloth tight, then sat across from him, breathing hard. The baby cried softly from the corner. Clara went to pick her up, rocking her, whispering something Wade couldn't quite hear. Hours passed before either spoke again. Outside, the sun was low, painting the prairie in red and gold. Inside, the light flickered against walls that had seen too much. Finally, Wade broke the silence. "You handled yourself well today." Clara didn't look up. I didn't have a choice. He nodded. Out here, no one ever does. She turned to him, her expression softer now. You could have left. Why didn't you? He looked into the fire. The flames crackled, reflecting in his eyes. Guess I couldn't stomach another grave on my conscience. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Another? Wade's jaw tightened. My brother. Years back, bandits hit our herd. I was too slow. He didn't say more. He didn't need to. Clara set the baby down and poured him water. I'm sorry, she said quietly. He nodded, throat thick. You don't need to be. That night, rain came sudden and hard. It drummed on the roof, leaking through cracks and filling buckets. Wade helped patch what he could, his bandaged arm aching. When the work was done, Clara brought out what little food they had, beans and hard bread. They ate in silence while the children slept nearby. After a while, she said, I saw the way that man looked at you. He knew you. Wade Spoon paused. Yeah. You used to ride with them? He met her eyes. No, but I hired men like them, paid them to guard my cattle. Never asked what else they did with their nights. Her gaze didn't waver. And you're proud of that? No, he looked down, just honest about it. She studied him for a long moment. You're not the man I expected, Mr. Coulter. Neither are you, Mrs. Mercer. That almost drew a smile. Almost. By morning, the storm had passed, leaving the world washed clean. Steam rose off the fields. Wade stepped outside, the smell of water thick in the air. He found the bandits' horses still tethered to the fence, snorting nervously. He checked the bodies, buried what was left of them behind the barn. It wasn't mercy, it was necessity. Coyotes didn't care about sins or names. When he came back, Clara was standing by the door, arms crossed. You planning on staying? She asked. He hesitated. You want me gone? I didn't say that. Then maybe I will. Days passed. Wade fixed the fence, repaired the roof. The children began to laugh again, just little sounds like sunlight breaking through clouds. One afternoon, Clara watched him from the porch, her youngest asleep in her arms. You're good with them, she said. Wade wiped sweat from his brow. Never had my own. Guess I don't know how to be bad. Her smile was small, but real this time. You talk like a man trying to make peace with something. Maybe I am. But peace never lasted long on the frontier. By the end of the week, a rider came up from the valley, a man in a brown coat, spurs shining, carrying Wade's brand on his saddle. Boss, the man said, tipping his hat, you've been gone too long. The men are restless. Herd needs moving. Bank wants numbers. Clara froze on the porch when she heard that. Boss, she repeated, voice sharp. You're the Coulter? Wade turned slowly. Yes, ma'am. She stared at him like she'd been slapped. All this time you stood here talking about hardship, fixing fences like some hired hand, and you're the man owns half the valley? Didn't seem the right time to mention it. Her eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. You let me think you were one of us. I never said I wasn't. She shook her head, stepping back. You came here to collect a debt. And all this, helping, fighting, what was it? Guilt? Pity? Neither. His voice cracked. It was right. She pointed toward the road. Then do what's right and go. I don't need your mercy, Mr. Coulter. The title cut deeper than any bullet. He left before dusk. Rain came again, soft and relentless. Clara watched from the porch as his figure disappeared between the pines, her children clinging to her skirt, asking where the cowboy went. She didn't answer. Inside, the fire sputtered and died. Outside, the land sighed with a sound of loss. That night, Wade camped on the ridge, his arm throbbing, his chest heavier than the storm clouds above him. He stared into the fire, replaying her words. Pity, mercy. He'd spent a lifetime collecting debts, measuring men by worth, land by price, hearts by distance. And now he'd met a woman who owed him nothing, and somehow left him feeling bankrupt. He tipped his hat low, the rain hissing on the coals. Somewhere behind him, smoke rose again from the valley, but he didn't see it yet, not until it was too late. The sun was still a pale shimmer over the far ridge when Wade Callahan rode back into Willow Creek. Alone this time, saddles stained with blood and dust. The morning air was sharp enough to sting, the kind that woke a man's conscience as much as his body. The hills were quiet, too quiet. He stopped at the crest, overlooking the widow's ranch. Smoke still rose from what had been her barn, twisting upward like a ghost unwilling to leave. Clara's children had survived the night. He'd made sure of it. They were hidden with the preacher's wife in town. But Clara, she hadn't spoken to him since the fire, since he'd told her the truth, that he was a man sent to take her home away. And now, that same home was the bait the bandits waited for. Wade swung down from his horse, boots crunching over brittle frost. His hat brim shadowed his eyes, but the look beneath it was pure steel. He'd spent the night tracking, following the deep ruts and broken brush that told him the outlaws hadn't gone far. He could almost feel them still, somewhere between the cottonwoods and the river bend, waiting for another chance to bleed this land dry. Callahan, a voice rasped behind him. Wade's hand went to his revolver before he turned. It was Sheriff Amos, pale and haggard, a bandage on his arm. "You shouldn't be here, Wade. They'll be back." "I know." The sheriff looked past him to the ranch house, half-burned, windows shot out. "That widow's still alive?" "She's inside," Wade said quietly, "and she's done running." The sheriff sighed. "You aim to take on 4 men with hell in their hearts?" Wade slid a fresh round into his coat. "No, I aim to end them." Inside, Clara sat at the kitchen table, her hair unbound, eyes rimmed with sleeplessness. The room was stripped bare, only a few chairs, some canned peaches, and a Bible left behind. The morning light caught the edge of her face, painting her in gold and sorrow. "You came back," she said, her voice brittle. "I never really left." She turned her gaze on him, anger trembling beneath the grief. "You lied to me. You came here to collect a debt. You looked me in the eye while you planned to take everything I had." Wade removed his hat, setting it down slow. "I did. I ain't proud of it. But something changed." Her lips pressed tight. "Changed?" "Yeah." His voice cracked a little. "You, those kids, this place, the way you looked at me when I could barely look at myself." She stood, trembling but fierce. "Don't you dare make this sound like salvation, Wade Callahan. You think a little guilt erases what you came to do." He didn't answer. The silence stretched, heavy with all the things neither could take back. Then came the distant sound of horses. Not just one, a dozen. Wade's eyes snapped a window. "They're here." He crossed the room in 2 strides, checking the rifle by the door, loading the last shells he had left. Clara followed, her hands shaking. "They won't stop, will they?" she whispered. "No," he said. "Not until someone makes them." He opened the door, stepped out into the cold light of dawn. The wind carried the smell of wet ash and gunpowder. From across the creek, shapes began to appear, riders, black silhouettes moving through the mist. Their leader, Travis Gage, wore a coat of wolf fur and a grin like a knife. "Well, hell," he called. "Look who crawled back." The debt collector himself. "Leave," Wade said. "Ain't nothing left here for you." Travis laughed. "There's always something left, especially when there's a pretty widow involved." The men around him jeered. Clara's hand tightened on the rifle beside her. Wade felt a familiar burn of rage crawl up his spine. Then came the thunder. Rifles cracked, bullets splintered the porch rail, and Wade dug behind the trough. He fired back twice, clean, fast, deliberate. One man fell. Another screamed. "Clara, get inside," he shouted. But she didn't run. She crouched by the window, returning fire with a precision that shocked him. She hit one outlaw in the shoulder. He dropped his pistol and fled into the brush. Smoke and dust filled the air. Horses screamed. The ground itself seemed to tremble. And then, nothing but wind and breath. Wade rose slowly, gun still drawn. "You still alive, Gage?" A low chuckle rolled from behind a fallen log. "Oh, I'm alive, Callahan. Question is, will you be after this?" Gage stepped out, holding a revolver to the sheriff's head. Blood dripped down Amos's temple. Put it down, Gage barked, or the lawman dies. Wade's grip didn't loosen. You're making a mistake. Gage sneered. Only mistake I made was letting you ride away last time. The two men faced each other across the scorched yard, smoke curling between them like ghosts of all they'd lost. Then Clara's voice cut through the silence. You don't have to do this, Wade. But it was too late. The gunfight was over in seconds. 2 shots. One from Gage. One from Wade. The sheriff collapsed first, hit in the arm. Wade staggered back, clutching his ribs, blood blooming through his shirt. But Gage was down, sprawled in the dirt, his gun just out of reach. Wade stumbled forward, kicked it away, and aimed one last time. This is for them kids you scared half to death. The hammer fell. Gage didn't move again. Clara was beside him in an instant, catching him before he hit the ground. His breath came ragged, each one a knife in his chest. Wade, no, she whispered, pressing her hands against the wound. Stay with me, please. He smiled faintly, eyes flickering. You got grit, Clara. Don't ever lose it. You saved us, she said, tears streaking her dirt-stained face. He shook his head weakly. No, you saved me. The world blurred, sky melting into smoke, voices fading into memory. He saw the cabin that could have been theirs, the sound of laughter on the porch, a baby's cry. For a heartbeat, he let himself believe it was real. Then everything went still. The sheriff buried Wade Callahan on a hill above Willow Creek, beneath a cottonwood tree that leaned toward the morning sun. The wind hummed through its branches like an old hymn. Clara stood alone, the children clinging to her skirts. She wore black, but her eyes were bright, fierce as firelight. The preacher spoke words about redemption, about debts paid in full, not in coin but in blood. When they left, she stayed. She knelt by the grave and whispered, You were supposed to take everything, but instead you gave us back our lives. A soft wind lifted her hair. Somewhere in the distance, a horse whinnied, one that would never return. Epilogue, the letter. Weeks later, Clara found an envelope tucked in the drawer Wade had repaired with his own hands. It was sealed with wax, the handwriting rough but careful. Clara, if you're reading this, I reckon I didn't make it through. There's a paper in my coat. Says the deed's yours, fair and legal. I told the banker I paid it in full. You won't owe another cent. I came here chasing a debt, but I reckon I found something worth more than any gold. You showed me what a man could be, even when he's done wrong. Don't let those young uns forget what strength looks like. Don't let yourself forget, either. If there's another life after this, maybe I'll ride back someday when the sun's setting over that ridge. Till then, I'll rest easy knowing you're safe. Wade. Clara pressed the letter to her heart and looked toward the horizon. The sky was the same shade of gold as that first morning he'd come riding down the trail, hard, proud, and lost. Now his debt was paid, and the widow of Willow Creek was no longer alone.